in my last log in Azure, I was explaining what the basics of Azure was, and just explaining it for people who might not understand fully what it is. This time I'm going to go into pretty much the budgeting aspect and estimating costs. So I'll move that over. And so what this is the cost analytics of a test account that I created. So if you look down at these, if you look at this graph, you can see how the cost went up. And then if you look at these ones down here, you can see specifically things that the items were when in the costs. And then it'll tell you exactly like where it was, what user storage, total cost, on what subscription. So that's just pretty much the overall overview of what Azure offers in terms of costs and how to find those out of what you're spending so you can make a budget. So in terms of being able to calculate how much you're going to need to spend or how much it's going to cost, you need to understand what your architecture is. So some things don't require a cost, but for instance, if you are using like anything to peer or use an endpoint with anything, those communication networks will incur a cost. So, in a small little example here that I'll make, this is a VM, and then you can have other things like that are working off of that, such as like Azure Kubernetes and other types of services. That's just the first thing that came to my mind for this example. So those services work off of the VMs, and you need to know, like, for instance, how long you're going to need to use the VM for. And you're going to need to know how long, you're going to need to know how many you're going to need. And then when you have your VM, you're going to need like storage for at least the OS. So I'm going to pretend that this circle is storage for the OS. So this is OS storage. And then most of the times, you're also going to need just basic data storage. And when you're getting storage, you need to know some just basic things about the storage. So you're gonna need to know how large it needs to be. So what size it is, and you at least need one for the OS. And then you might also have some or other things that you can run snapshot off of or have a backup. So like you might just have another drive that's just dedicated to backups. And then let's say you're connecting this to some kind of something else. You're connecting that to a network. And then let's say here's a device. Then this outbound going data is also going to incur a cost. So then you're also going to need to know how fast and how much data you're going to need to send through. And other things that you'll need, just are you going to, like, just overall with everything, like if you need alerts or logs or anything, those are also going to incur a cost. And then there's a thing called a VNet. And while this doesn't itself have a cost to it, other things connected to it will have a cost. So if you're connecting something with ExpressRoute, or if you need an IP, like a private or public IP, those cost and those go in the VNet. Just connecting the VM to the VNet, and then let's say you have your VNet, and then you want to have another VNet for another thing. Well, now this connection right here, that has a cost to it. So you're not physically paying for the VNet, you're paying for everything surrounding the VNet. And then sometimes you'll also want just a database, and those cost, and you need to know like sizes and everything like you would just for a storage. So you really just need to understand the architecture, like how many, how fast, what do you need for data transfers, what kind of IPs you're going to need, and all those kind of things. So then if we go over here into the Azure pricing calculator, the first thing you're going to want to do is, because it doesn't save unless you're signed in, is you're going to want to sign in. So once you've signed in, I'm not going to for this example just because I'm just doing it as an example and I don't need it for anything later. You can look at these lists. It'll give you example scenarios, savings, questions, and then here's all the products. So if you're just looking at compute stuff, there's all these things. And then here's containers, analytics, DevOps. So let's just get an example going with, let's say, a virtual machine. You're going to scroll down, and you need to know what region that you're going to want it in. So this will determine how what latency that it'll have when you're connecting. So for this example, let's use East US, Windows, and then we'll just do OS, standard. And you're going to want to know what you're going to want to be using it for, so we'll just do general purpose. And what instance, just do that. And then you're going to want to know like what you want for compute power. So like if you're just looking for like lighter tasks, the cheaper one might be the better option, but if you need to do heavy dutier things, you might want the larger ones. So for the purposes of this, I'll just go with something kind of in the middle. Now you need to know how many you want, so like how many employees or how many interfaces that you need. So again, for purposes of this, let's say it's just a small company of 10 people, and let's say in terms of days, you're gonna use. Now let's do it in terms of hours. So let's see. Let me do some math. So for this, let's say everybody just works a standard 40-hour week. That's 400 hours. And then you're going to want to, then there's some saving options. So what you can do is you can reserve this, like if you were going to like lock yourself in, or if you just want to do pay as you go. So for instance, pay as you go, $960 a month. Do you want to reserve a spot for a year? Apparently, it just doesn't let you. It would be cheaper. Same thing with 3 years. And then you have, if you have your license or if you're using a hybrid benefit. So if you have some on-premise infrastructure already, or if you already have your licenses, you obviously don't need to repay for those. That's an extra $480, but we don't have those in this example. And then you're going to need to know what kind of disks you want. So since we're going at the middle, I prefer solid state. I'll just do that for redundancy. We'll do I'll just do that, and let's include the OS on these disks. So that's, you're going to want 10 disks. That's, why is it doing that? There we go. And then you can look at like snapshot sizes, but we won't do that in this example. And then how many transactions you're going to make. Are you data transfer types, going back to this, how much, what speed. This is East US, we're doing it in East US. Destination, set it as East Asia. We'll keep it at 5 just because that's what they put it to. Support, we'll just keep it in standard. Included, developer, standard, and professional. I feel like that's overkill. We'll just do standard for this. And then obviously the agreement. So the estimated monthly cost for 10 VMs with that is $1,900. So then, let's say you're also looking for, I could just do it over here, couldn't we? No, I'll just do this. Let's say that you're looking for a data share. How many snapshots you're going to need, execution, what kind of support you want, etc., etc. Upfront 0, $730 monthly. Or we could also, or actually I believe we can just do that in here. Let's edit. Just add another one. Yeah, okay, my bad. So yeah, so then this will add it to the overall cost, which is $2,600 now with the data share and the VM. And then you need, so this is where the needing to know your infrastructure comes into place. Like you have your virtual machines, and let's just say that's all that you need. Is you just need virtual machines. But you also have, maybe you want like a VPN, so you'll need a VPN gateway. You'll need your VPN, and then if you've got your network connections, then you'll need this virtual network for. And that will, of course, incur a cost. So we'll keep that at 100 gigabytes. Standard everything. Once again, there's more cost to add, so you need to know what you're going to need. And then you already have your storage set up for them. What do you need them for? So like you might need like some kind of app service, Kubernetes, Azure functions. So like these are the things I was talking about earlier with the what were they? Oh yeah, the alerts and stuff. Your databases, so you might want an SQL database, so that also incurs a cost. And then, okay, so this one's working. So let's say you want to so pay as you go, 127. reserve for a year, it's only 74 a month. Then you reserve it for 3 years, it's only 50 per month. So it changes depending on how long, and then like it obviously adds up. If you're, let's say you're getting 5 servers, $600. You can knock that down to as low as $250 a month. So let's say we're just gonna do pay as you go for this though. And if you want backup, let's do a terabyte per server. Storage. Yeah, it's probably overkill then. For up to, we'll just do 1. Standard support. Okay, so now that you've come down to this, now it's 3,000. So overall, you just need to know what you're going to. There's maybe you want some identity. Now you have to add Azure Active Directory, and let's say they just want some super basic features, and you've got your 10 VMs. Let's say you have 10 users. Well, now that you have your 10 users, that's $6 per user. That's $60, and those include a lot of resources that you might want to use on your network. And your VPN gateway, we won't set that up. So you just need to understand what you need for your infrastructure. Otherwise, you could end up missing things and not being able to get an accurate cost estimate. And these are all estimates. These aren't like set in stone. This is how much you're going to pay. That's all that I have for this one. I should have another one out by next week.